Well, it didn't take long for someone to try to profit off the Virginia shooting that left 4 people injured, including Representative Steve Scalise. Now, Raw Story is reporting that Republican Colorado House Minority Leader Patrick Neville recently sent out a fundraising email on behalf of the Colorado Liberty PAC, asking for donors to contribute to combat the, quote, hate-inspired violent rhetoric against conservatives and Republicans. Typical of what you'd expect of a slimy politician. Now, Neville told donors, quote, the left is out of control, their violent actions are un-American, and it needs to stop. Hold on there, buddy. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, since this whole thing happened, the left has been condemning this guy nonstop. Now, when's the last time the right wing condemned a shooting by a white nationalist? Gotta ask that question. And how much backlash did they receive before having to do so? Just a question. But that's not the main issue in the email. No, it's this. Finally, if you can, please show us that you're not backing down by chipping in $50 or $25 to Colorado Liberty PAC today so we can retake the state house in 2018. Your contribution today will help us advance our conservative values through passionate and peaceful civil discourse that makes our country great. Peaceful discourse. And look, I got to do it. I got to go there. What kind of peaceful discourse are we talking about? The kind that says, hang in there, Obama? When you had a picture of President Obama hanging from a noose? Is that kind of civil discourse? How many of you on the right protested against that, by the way? Look, when Kathy Griffin basically did a completely stupid thing and did the photo shoot with the so-called Trump head, which was ridiculous. It was nothing more than her trying to gain some relevance, gain some attention. Well, the backlash was so bad that she essentially had her career destroyed. Okay? And look, rightly so. Ted Nugent, however, arguably the most vile person imaginable, had told President Obama to, quote, suck on my machine gun. Now, where's Ted Nugent right now? Did Ted Nugent lose his career? No, no, no. He still does shows in the Outdoor Channel. His career is actually doing fine. You know why? Because there are some people that are perfectly happy with this level of discourse within the Republican Party. Now, most on the left tend to condemn that in the strongest terms. And as we saw with Kathy Griffin, she was condemned universally by both the right and the left. Whereas Ted Nugent, there's still enough people that like Ted Nugent that he's still relevant. But there's one thing that's worse than endorsing this rhetoric. And that is, of course, trying to cash in on it. According to Colorado Polls, which is a blog, Neville had, quote, ceded the high ground by trying to raise funds off the tragic shooting. Quote, they have politicized this man's horrific actions in exactly the way they refuse to accept with countervailing examples. Like the man who walked into a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado Springs in November of 2015 and started shooting. And that rank hypocrisy still wasn't enough. Now they tried to make money off of it. Now, of course, after this pushback, Neville defended using the shooting of Representative Steve Scalise in order to raise money. Neville insisted to KUSA TV that letter's main purpose wasn't to raise money, even though it asked for contributions of at least $25. He told them, quote, I wouldn't consider it a pure fundraising email. The main purpose was to encourage people not to be silenced by fear. So, wait a minute. Let's go back here. Okay. Left is out of control. Their violent actions are un-American. Well, and it needs to stop. Well, how do we want them to stop? By giving us money. By giving Liberty PACs some money. That seems like it's a fundraising email. Okay. Seems like the whole purpose was to make to raise money for your congressional races for Republicans. But no, it's so conservatives aren't silenced by fear. That's all it's about. Not buying it. Now, he further continues, right? And he tries to sell you a little bit of a sob story. Listen to this. He said, this issue is a difficult one for me. As a former Columbine student, I have experienced a mass shooting and lost friends. I also saw political terrorist acts like this one used in Iraq as a way to silence the citizens of that country. I never want to see that here in America. I think it's important to stand up against them immediately. Well, then please, why don't you stand up also when it's a right-wing terrorist? When there's a white supremacist, did you stand up against Dylan Roof? I don't know. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I don't know. Certainly didn't seem to send emails about, hey, let's stand up against white Christian terrorism. Did you ever send a fundraising email off that? No, not that I know of. Again, prove me wrong. But I don't think they have a leg to stand on. No, this seems like pure political opportunism. And maybe you should have enough respect not to politicize the shooting in order to try to raise money for your ridiculous Senate campaigns or congressional campaigns. And that is the very same thing that some of these people who try to accuse, right, people who are in favor, for example, of making common sense gun control measures that would make it slightly harder for people who are domestic abusers, like this shooter happened to be, from having access to a gun. They accuse those people of politicizing this tragedy in order to push common sense gun reform. But see, you're trying to make money off this. And by trying to raise money off this, you have done the exact thing that you accuse gun control proponents of doing. You're politicizing this in order to make money. It's disgusting. Hypocrisy has a name. And right now, his name is Patrick Neville. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.